The Portuguese Grand Prix at Portimão delivered a masterclass in precision, control, and raw pace. And at the heart of it stood Marco Bezzecchi, the man who turned a promising start into a flawless start-to-finish sweep that left the rest of the MotoGP grid chasing shadows. The lights went out under the bright Algarve sun, and Bezzecchi's launch was perfect. He rocketed off the line, diving into turn 1 with authority, while chaos unfolded behind him. Pedro Acosta tucked into second, Marc Márquez settled in third, and the rest of the pack fanned out in a blur of color, noise, and fearless ambition. It was clear from the very first corner that Bezzecchi had something special today, a sense of calm in the middle of MotoGP's storm. While the others jostled for position, Bezzecchi's focus never wavered. Each apex was clean, every braking zone precise, his Ducati slicing through the circuit like it was on rails. But behind him, the story was chaos. In the early laps, Fermín Aldeguer and Brad Binder went wheel to wheel in a brutal exchange of aggression. At turn 3, Aldeguer launched an ambitious move, only to be shut down by Binder's fierce defense into turn 4. On the very next corner, Aldeguer struck again, late on the brakes, elbows out, and this time, Binder had nowhere to go. Their bikes brushed, and a piece of Binder's rear aero flicked off into the air. It didn't seem like much, but in MotoGP, one piece of lost aero can change the entire rhythm of a race. The midfield battles raged on. Franco Morbidelli suffered a devastating fall at turn 5 after contact with Paul Espargaro, his bike sliding helplessly across the asphalt. Moments later, Enea Bastianini, who had also tangled in that same chicane, was forced to pit and swap bikes after damaging his front wheel. Meanwhile, Bezzecchi at the front was untouchable. He kept his lines tight, his rhythm surgical. Marquez hovered behind him, half a second, then 6/10, then back to half, probing, analyzing, waiting for the smallest mistake that never came. Acosta, fast and hungry, tried to stay in touch, but soon began to slip back, losing over a second as the laps built up. Further behind, Francesco Bagnaia was holding 5th comfortably, riding alone, free from the chaos that erupted behind him. He carved out a 2-second buffer over Fabio Quartararo, who was now under pressure from Johan Zarco, Binder, and the relentless Aldeguer by lap 8. The order at the front was steady: Bezzecchi, Marquez, Acosta. The gap between each was small, but Bezzecchi looked in total control. His pace was relentless, his lap times deep in the 138s, while everyone else had already dropped into the 139s. It was the kind of performance that made the rest of the grid look human. On lap 12, the numbers told the story. Bezzecchi had stretched his lead to 1.5 seconds. Marquez was still hanging on, but the balance of his Honda was starting to fade. The front tire wear was visible, and replays showed his bike shaking violently through turn 11. Still, he refused to give up. That's Marquez. He doesn't surrender. He simply fights physics until it bends his way. But today wasn't his day. It belonged to the man in front. As the laps clicked by, Acosta began to regroup. His times started to improve, inching closer to Marquez, who was now losing grip with every sector. The rookie could smell blood, and with each corner, his confidence grew. Behind them, Binder continued his charge despite his earlier aero damage. At turn 5, he pounced on Quartararo, braking impossibly late to seize 5th place. The move was pure Binder, fearless, controlled chaos. Quartararo tried to respond, but the KTM was too strong, too steady in acceleration. With 12 laps to go, Bezzecchi was now almost 3 seconds ahead, a man riding in his own zone. His mechanics could hardly believe the telemetry. Lap after lap, the consistency was unshakable. Every braking point was within millimeters of the previous one. It was like watching a simulation, except this was real life, real pressure, and real dominance. Meanwhile, Acosta was closing on Marquez fast. The rookie's raw pace was breathtaking, smooth, aggressive, and calculated. Marquez could see him closing on the pit straight, his rear tire slipping just enough to hint at the trouble beneath. The cameras zoomed in on Marquez's face through the visor. No panic, just focus. Just the warrior trying to hang on with what little grip he had left. 2 laps from the end, the gap between Marquez and Acosta had dropped to a single second. The race for second was alive. The camera panned to Bezzecchi, serene in front, gliding through the Portuguese curves like an artist signing his masterpiece. His team in the garage dared not move. every heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of his laps. Then came the penultimate lap. Bezzecchi's lead narrowed slightly to 3 seconds, but it didn't matter. He was already in control. Marquez, fighting the bike, the tires, and the inevitable, pushed with everything left in him. Acosta, now just 8/10 behind, could sense it. One mistake from the veteran could open the door. The tension was electric. Fans stood on their feet, eyes darting between the leaders. The commentators could barely keep up as the race entered its final moments. And then, the checkered flag. Marco Bezzecchi crossed the line, arms lifted, a clean sweep from start to finish. It wasn't just a win. It was a statement, a declaration that he could not only lead from the front, but dominate under pressure. Behind him, Marquez crossed second, battered but unbroken. His front tire had been destroyed, his arms aching from the strain, yet he held off the young sensation Acosta, who finished third, a result that underlined his growing maturity and rising star power. Just behind them, Fermín Aldeguer completed a strong and assertive ride in fourth, showcasing pace and courage in equal measure. Binder, despite losing rear aero early in the race, finished fifth, one of his finest performances of the season. Full of grit and determination, Fabio Quartararo settled for sixth, while Ai Ogura claimed seventh after finally making his move stick on Zarco. Fabio Di Giannantonio came home eighth, Johann Zarco ninth, and Paul Espargaro rounded out the top 10. As Bezzecchi parked his Ducati, his team erupted. Mechanics embraced, crew chiefs applauded. This was not just a victory, it was perfection. Every lap led, every sector owned, every rival left behind. In the post-race interviews, Bezzecchi's smile said it all. "It was one of those days where everything felt right," he said. "The bike was perfect, the rhythm was there, and I just focused on keeping it clean. These are the days we work for." And indeed, it was that kind of day. In a sport defined by chaos and milliseconds, Marco Bezzecchi had delivered something rare: control. His win in Portugal wasn't about drama or luck, it was about mastery. For Marquez, it was another podium, another reminder that even in defeat, he remains one of the toughest riders ever to grace the grid. For Acosta, it was proof that he's already part of MotoGP's elite. But for Bezzecchi, this victory was something else entirely, a statement of intent. In a championship dominated by headlines about Marquez, Bagnaia, and Martin, the quiet Italian had just made sure the world remembered his name. As the sun dipped over Portimao, the Ducati garage celebrated a flawless Sunday, a race without mistakes, without hesitation, and without doubt. Marco Bezzecchi didn't just win in Portugal, he owned it. And as the season moves forward, one thing is certain: this victory wasn't an accident. It was a warning. Marco Bezzecchi isn't just part of the conversation anymore. He's rewriting it, one perfect race at a time.